Welcome to today's webinar, Leveraging Your ERP System for Effective Virtual Work. My name is Jaden Anderson with Civil Instructional Engineer Media. Thank you for joining this webinar, which is sponsored by Elevia Software. Before I begin today's presentation, first some general information about the webinar and the GoToWebinar platform. The views of the speakers and organizations participating in this webinar are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Civil Instructional Engineer Media or its publishers, Y Group. If you have any technical difficulties while viewing this webinar, please submit questions or a brief explanation of your technical problem using the question tab on the GoToWebinar control panel, and a representative will assist you. During the webinar, you can also submit questions to our speakers using the same question tab. Submit your questions at any time, and we will try to answer as many as we can later in the webinar. Y Group encourages group learning for our events. If you are viewing the live webinar with a group on one registered person's computer, that person must complete and submit the multiple viewer registration form for the group in order for everyone to earn credit. Download the multiple viewer registration form from the handouts tab on the control panel. Submission instructions are on the form. Viewers of archived webinars must pass a quiz in order to download a certificate of completion. Today we have three presenters. We have Nelda Kane, a senior consultant with Elevia Software. She has 16 years of ERP implementation experience, and she loves to help clients utilize Elevia products to improve and streamline their unique business processes. Then we have Dawn Dostie, a national billing manager with TRC Companies. Dawn is always looking for new ways to make billing for TRC more efficient without sacrificing quality. She loves to utilize new technology or better the use of existing tools. And we also have Ron Noden, Executive Vice President of Elevia Software. Ron is deeply committed to organizational improvements and helping customers be more successful. Ron has served as CEO of one of Minnesota's fastest growing technology companies and as a principal in 16 startups. He loves to blend the power of technology with the power of talented people. And now I'm going to turn it over to them and let them take over from here.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to walking through this today. Thank you all for joining us as well. We're in the midst of interesting times for sure. As you can tell, one of the things that happens when unusual times occur, such as, say, a pandemic, people have to look at their business a little differently, and they have to look at how they operate a little differently as well. And we're going to walk through a few things that our software helps and a few things that outside of our software help make better processes and better ways to address your business. We're going to leverage the ERP for effective virtual work. If you want to go ahead and hit the slide. First off, what we're going to cover today, we're going to look at billing challenges. We're going to walk through ways to overcome some of those, some real-life examples of electronic invoicing use and improving time, how to stay on top of billing while working remote and being virtual. We're going to look at streamlining the workflows, and we're going to look at how to maximize cash flow and how reporting can help you better manage your business around some of the elements that lead into improved cash flow. We're going to show you some specific items that are inside of the tools that will allow you to better understand those things. One of the quotes that possibly my favorite quote right now is never take your eyes off the cash flow because it's the lifeblood of the business. Richard Branson said that. I had the good fortune of spending about a dozen years as a consultant where my core mission was to go into companies that were at the point of destruction, really, and try to help them figure out if there's something here that can be saved or turned around or made better. And during that window of time, each time we went into a company, the first thing we would do is we would look at the cash flow and try to get the cash flow fixed so we could come back and play again tomorrow. One of the keys, sometimes organizations have great net income and report that things on paper look very well, but if the cash flow doesn't match and provide the kind of access that's needed, that net income piece can really be a misstatement in terms of the overall organizational health. Our mission with our customers and in our industry is to help organizations take control of the cash flow by using specific tools to drive those elements in a positive way and make a substantive impact on how they operate their business. Our company, a little brief background on Elevia before we get into the main part of the topic here. Elevia really started in 2009, and we work with organizations to provide software, finance, and field professional areas inside the AEC market. We're located in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have over 280 clients, 130,000 plus licensed users. We're in every province and territory in Canada, all 50 states, and in over 40 countries currently. A few of our clients, you might recognize a couple of names on here. There's quite a few folks that are pretty well recognized pillars of the industry that utilize some of our software. In fact, if you, we have a kind of a who's who of who's involved in using our software. When you start looking at some of the upper tier performers, a very large percentage, a majority of them utilize our software due to the benefits we provide. And really, we have a lot of great feedback from those folks. I have to tell you that it's been very exciting the last several weeks during our time in captivity that we've had so many great comments come back from people who utilize our products about how well the software has helped them work virtually. And many of the comments have been around, in fact, one of them recently last week said, I'm not sure how we'd have gotten through this if we didn't have your software in place. We would have been woefully unprepared. And it's great to hear those comments because it lets us know that the value that we bring to those customers, especially when they are transforming their businesses to be more digital, more virtual, is really impacting not just their daily business, but I think all of us have a challenge as we go through trying times and changing times, is to be able to find ways to better run our organizations, be more efficient in what we do, and sometimes working around in pretty incredibly difficult issues and elements that are going on around us. You know, we can't really control the marketplace. We can't really control things like pandemics. We can't really control a lot of things in our lives, but we can control how well we do the things that we can do. We can control how much effort we put towards things, and we can control focus. And that's really part of the story here, is how this can help you provide some focus and tools to better operate during difficult times. Today we're going to discuss about the product and the opportunity to be involved with electronic invoicing. Electronic invoicing is the banner product of Elevia, but it's also an important thing for any business to be able to find ways to make sure that invoicing is done in the most automated process possible. Oftentimes, organizations do a tremendous amount of work to get an invoice out, and conventional invoicing that you see on the screen might be as many as 10 or in some cases 12, 13, 14 steps to get it out the door. Some of those elements are really labor intensive and require paperwork or elements that are a little bit less digital if you aren't properly organized. And it's not just emailing an invoice out, it's how do we prep and make that happen in the most effective way possible. To that end, if you compare the typical invoicing process with Elevia, it's roughly half the number of steps, and it's a significant uptick in not only the timing of getting the invoice out, but the accountability and the transparency around that process. And it allows for organizations to not just better manage the process, but to really understand what's in the current situation, what they're trying to accomplish, what's been done, what hasn't been done, and really having a full view of that in order to better manage the process long term. And we'll walk through some examples of that in a little bit. Our electronic invoicing is really a tool that helps you get the information in an easy-to-use review and approval process for all client invoices. And it does have lots of configurable elements that allow you to user define and use the kind of tools that you want to use to better utilize the software and to better run your business. We have some tools with built-in PDF and markup. We have delegation capabilities. We have parallel approvals, which means instead of routing that yellow folder to 6 different desks and going one by one, or electronically routing it one by one, we can actually get it to everybody at the same time, have them all weigh in, and have that come back in a much more expeditious manner. And in fact, it creates an opportunity to better package those elements and make sure everything is included. So it creates this faster, more digital, easier to use process that speeds up everything. We have, just as a background on our product itself, and you'll see some advantages to this. You'll see things you'll be able to glean for whatever system you're using, but certainly inside of our product, some things that are nice about it is it has an easy integration with Deltek Vision and VantagePoint, and it comes out of the box with some great features and some ability to configure to get additional features. One of the other things that we see all the time is it gives you an ability to look at things as they are right this moment, which is very handy when you're trying to get the right information for billing and trying to use correct information for what your customers need to see. That allows you to save time. It also improves the accuracy of everything we do, and it creates the opportunity to, in a more automated fashion, do invoicing to present a final invoice package, which allows you a much more streamlined and speedier way to get to that point. So that being said, I want to share a few of the challenges that we see with numerous organizations. Virtually everyone that we run into, we see the same challenges, and a lot of times it's around the lack of visibility into elements of their business. They're surprised by amounts that were held or not billed or magically disappeared. Probably not at your companies, but at other companies that aren't as well organized, those things happen. And we often see where the reviewer becomes the bottleneck and they don't get to it. And if you've worked in organizations where a project manager might say something to the effect of, what difference does it make if I get it done this week or next week? We're still going to get paid by these people. And that is an opportunity to share the gospel of how cash flow actually operates. And we have some tools to show you and be able to get you a full example of how you can share with that person what their impact is and how they can help you better improve cash flow. Oftentimes, invoice challenges are related to the time to invoice, and there's no measurement of it. And often, we use, as an industry and really throughout all industries, there's a tendency to categorize things as WIP or works in progress and have that be assumed as an asset for accounting purposes or for borrowing purposes or for mental health for owners to keep them from losing their minds. And it's true, it does help. We'd like to have you take a little bit different look at this. And if you get nothing else out of today, I hope that this is something that you can incorporate into how you view your business. WIP, work in progress, is really a noun, a thing, an asset. And we're looking at time to invoice is really the same things. It's things that haven't invoiced yet, but we want to start looking at them differently, and we want to look at them as how long did it take from the moment we did the work till the moment we invoiced? What's the time to invoice? And we want to put the clock on it. We don't want to consider it an asset. You can do that in other areas of your books and whatever you need to do, but what we want to consider it is it's a challenge to figure out how to expedite from finished work to invoicing and measure that in total and by individual areas and by individual project managers and by others to be able to figure out how can we lower time to invoice, because that generally has a massive impact on cash flow, and it's often not even a consideration by many companies on an area they can improve that will massively improve that cash flow. And of course, there's the challenge of working with paper and being in that environment where we haven't fully embraced being digital, and the opportunity to store less paper, touch less paper, and accomplish more. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dawn Dostie. Dawn is a great friend of LV and a great friend of mine, and is the National Billing Manager, among other things, for TRC. And she's going to share with us a little bit about how they operate and the impact of electronic invoicing. Dawn?
Thank you so much. So to start out, TRC as a whole, one of the challenges, as you probably can see on your screen, that we face, we have 4 sectors, 25,000 or more active or inactive projects at any time, over 1,000 project managers, and we also have another level of project coordinators who are involved in our billing process. We have 34 billers and project manager assistants, 2 billing supervisors, 29 project accountants, and 3 project accountant supervisors. So when you have that many people, I jokingly say at times, it's kind of like herding cats. So in order to achieve our overall DSO goals and have real visibility into our billing process, electronic invoicing was brought into TRC. I think we're going on about 8 years now. If you want to scoot over to the next slide. So TRC was around long before 2011. This is kind of my birth into TRC. So back in 2011, we were where maybe some of you are today. We had, honestly, with project managers that were in our building, of course, pre-pandemic, we would actually hand deliver paper drafts. Some wanted them emailed, and looking back now, shockingly, some of them we actually FedExed or mailed. Everything was printed. We had to decipher project managers at times chicken scratches, scan them back in on our side so we could store them electronically and or file them in a file cabinet, the paper copies. The billers would then finalize the invoice, print them, staple them together, and give them to our project accountant at that time for a QC review. Then we would file those 2 together and send an invoice out to the client. Clearly, extraordinarily inefficient. Next, not long after I started with TRC, our CFO at the time asked me, what could we do differently in your opinion? Because I was starting to try to make some changes because I started out as a biller with TRC. That's when I said, why are we doing this? If I email a PDF to a project manager, why can't they just use the markup tools and use that to then email it back? So we're not printing and scanning and all of that. We still were printing the physical invoice, printing the drafts with our PDF markups, stapling them together, and going through the same process at that point. So still not super efficient, but a step in the right direction. After that, now comes electronic invoicing. This was our infancy, I'd say, with electronic invoicing. The onboarding began with a test group. It's the 80-20 rule. We've got that 20% rule where, I want a paper, I want to print it, I want to set it down, I like to physically touch it. But, with 80% instantly loving it, those 20% came around pretty quickly. We worked through that resistance with one of my acronyms, WIFM, what's in it for me? Automatic reminders, fewer emails, and electronic invoicing for the project manager's side. It actually provides like a checklist within reason. So if a biller sends something to a project manager, it's in their work grid. They automatically are notified that something is there to review. When they complete it, it falls off the list, which is of course satisfying to feel that you've gotten something accomplished in the day. So we could sell it into that 20% pretty quickly to make them feel good about getting their work done, and they don't have to look for emails, chase things down. It was right there ready for them. Over the next 5 years, lots changed. We started looking at, Ron referred to the customizable columns. It's kind of like, and you will see this in a moment, Nelda will show you, the top kind of looks like an Excel spreadsheet, like a grid. So we've been able to take what's important to TRC and put it first and foremost right in front of our project managers. We've also allowed the billers to act as experts. Any one biller could have well over 1,000 projects. How do they remember what a PM said 3 months ago? We added notes fields and things like that only the biller can see to help them be the expert. As management, sorry. Sorry, Jenny. We put reporting tools in place. So I worked very closely with Elevia. They've been a great partner for TRC. And, you know, as I grew with TRC myself, I went into management and now I'm the director. I really struggled with, okay, how do I know where we're succeeding? And how do I show operations the pain the billing staff feels? Just as Ron was saying, how do we get a PM driven without any metrics? If I can complain and say project manager A isn't returning their drafts fast enough, okay, but I don't have any proof. So by using reporting within electronic invoicing, we created basically a turnaround time report that tells me by roles I define how long it's taking each person. And on top of that, we also developed another report. The second inefficiency besides time is how many times is a project manager touching the same invoice? A project manager shouldn't have to take their time to touch something 3 or 4 times just to get an invoice out the door to a client. So it allowed us the visibility really into some root cause troubleshooting. At this point, efficiencies really began to form. And on top of that, with a billing staff of 30, basically, you're really looking to build that team. How does employee biller A let biller D know they really need some help? So at any time, we developed a report as well that we can just run that shows what is in a biller's hands. So the supervisors then have a tool to help manage the workload because every biller is assigned a set group of work. This allows them to see that a set biller, you know, it doesn't look like you have a lot going on today. Do you think you'd have 2 or 3 free hours to jump in and help another person? So it's really helped develop the team from the biller's side, the visibility from the manager's side, and then of course the WIFM for the operations side. Go ahead, Jenny, sorry. Where we are today. At least 99% of our project managers now use electronic invoicing. Quite frankly, I think we have a couple people that are visually impaired, which drops us below that 100%. We've created efficiencies in our workflow approvals. You know, you put in place what you think is going to work. Even today, we have room to grow. So we're starting to put things in place where we personally have 2 levels. We have our project controller, coordinator, however we refer to that acronym, and then a project manager. But there are some projects that are so easy to invoice and straightforward, like fixed fee lump sum billing. The project controller or coordinator is now stepping in, taking that off the project manager's plate, allowing them more time to go chase more work while we're allowing that invoice to get out the door 2 or 3 days faster by removing a level from our approvals. The finance managers, we use the reporting to manage the business. We've been able to set KPIs with our billing staff based on the data I can easily get out of electronic invoicing. And probably one of the most exciting things, if any of you went to the Insight I spoke about, we actually have automated some of our billing with the use of a bot. So by using what's called an invoice stage, which you define, which again, Nelda will go over, we've been able to come up with a trigger where things are just straight billing, no changes needed. We have a bot that goes in and actually reads the PDF and does the billing for us. This has saved us tons of time and effort because how do you manage a business that's growing without doubling your staff? As everybody knows, we got to try to keep overhead down without sacrificing any of the billing process along the way. What was the next slide, Jenny? Sorry. So real quick before we go into the electronic invoicing demo and I hand it over to Nelda, I just want to speak really quickly regarding kind of where we are today in the environment with the everyone being remote kind of thing. TRC does have all of our billing staff working from home for their safety at this time. So by having electronic invoicing, I meet with my staff every morning. We take a look at where everyone is at, see if anyone needs help. You can see when things are done. You can see the amount of money outstanding. Because let's be real, I'm probably going to chase $100,000 or $1 million before I'm going to chase $1,000. So you can easily sort through. You can put in, I've got it by sector, by practice, by office. I can sort and kind of hit on those top key points from my side. I'm going to pick up the phone, probably make 10 phone calls midday to try to get some money in the door faster. And it allows the billers, quite frankly, nothing's changed. Whether they're in the office or they're sitting at home, I can see exactly where everyone is, make sure all our drafts have gotten out, nothing's been overlooked, and is the biller getting it done? My expectation is billing is done if it's returned to our staff within 24 hours. That is a tight window. So being able to watch it and kind of move staff around and help each other out, electronic invoicing has been completely invaluable. It's something that I could not do my job without. Nelda, we'll turn it over to you so you can go ahead and show everyone what a great product it is.
Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome.
So as Dawn mentioned, we are in Vision. So I starting the demo from within our Vision application. We also do work with VantagePoint. So we're currently working on the 3.0 integration that's coming out. So if that question is out there, we do have the capability to work with VantagePoint. We do have several clients on it. And we also do work in a cloud environment as well as on premise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this electronic invoicing link. Currently, I have it up underneath my billing menu. As a firm, you have a decision as to wherever you want to place that in terms of your security. And so it's not something that's required. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Connect, and this launches our application. This application can be launched from an email as well. So at the time during configuration, we would go through and determine what your notification intervals are, and anytime an item is set to an approver, they would get a notification, and this is what Dawn was kind of referring to as their work grid, is that notification would be to say, hey, you have something available that you need to go take a look at. So when I launch electronic invoicing, I'm here, I'm going to log in to start with. I'm going to show you really quick the accounting view and how accounting sees it. And then I'm going to flip over and show you a demo from the PM side to be able to show you the flexibility and how easy it is for them to go in and fill out the information. So from an accounting side, during configuration, we set up invoice groups. So invoice groups can be your biller, they can be regions, your disciplines, however it is you have your invoicing broke out now. If I click on one of these on Amy, here I get my list of my projects for Amy. I also have the ability to break it out into multiples. We can also do weekly. So there's Sue, but Sue has 4 different weeks that she can work with. So I'm going to focus on Amy. I can show you Bob. Bob's got a ton here. Anytime I come in and I select on this, I can see the stage here that the invoice is in. So these stages that we're talking about are defined during configuration. So some of the standard ones are, accounting. That means it's ready for batch billing, getting ready to be pushed out the door. And review, this means that Grace, right now, because she's highlighted, it's in ready for Grace to work on. So when I click on this, a couple things happen. On the bottom left-hand corner, you can see my draft invoice that I created. And on the right-hand side, you can see my unbilled detail. These are generated in the system from, These are generated in the system when you do your batch billing, your drafts for the period. When I click on here, I see this information. I can also click on the little plus sign to the left, and I could drill down to my lower, whether you call it phase task. Here you can see, so any of the information I see in my grid, I can also see down to the lowest level on the project. Any of these columns, the project up through this add docs, these are all standard fields that come with the product. So you have your project name, your stage flow. So this is what Dawn was referring to her approval. They had the project coordinator role or project assistant, and then they had a second level. So you can have multiple stage flows depending on your business approval process. So you can have an approver where it just goes to one person, or you can have one where it's a reviewer and it goes to a reviewer first, so like a project assistant, and then goes up to approver, whether it be a PM or a principal. So we can have multiple stage flows. In this one, I have it set to approval required, and it's going to go to Grace. So whoever's highlighted is the one that has the action, and it's currently in Grace's court for her to review. Other options that we do, you typically see in accounting, a review, and then a invoice as is, meaning no changes needed. Invoice as noted, meaning a change needed to move transactions to billable or non-billable, percent complete changes. Also have a do not bill feature, or hold is also another one. And then we see a revise and return. A revise and return would mean Grace has made changes. She wants to go back to the billing department to create a new draft so she can see that before she approves it. And if you're
Nella,
driving,
can I mention one thing about hold?
yes.
One of the great tools that, as we talked about the user-defined columns, Dawn mentioned, like, why are things holding? Why are they not billing? Because you can customize so many columns, we actually added a reason and a redraft date. Why put the strain on your system to just methodically push out drafts monthly, bi-weekly, whatever the schedule happens to be? Instead of doing that, if a project is fixed fee milestone or something, and it's not going to bill, and you know it's not going to bill until August or something, why bother your project manager every single month? And I don't know why. So we actually have ours set up, which is a great tool that we're using a lot now. It's one of our newer modifications. If a project manager places something on hold, they have to give a reason why, and we've provided kind of the top 5 reasons. And they have to give us a date. Tell us when you think you're going to bill this, so that we can not only keep an eye on the cash flow, but we can send that list up the ladder to our presidents of our sectors and say, look, you've got this much money tied up based on these hold reasons. If projects are being set up to not bill until completion or something, that might be a conversation someone on the operations side wants to have. So we've found that to be, that hold and being able to build off these columns, a great tool. Sorry,
Right.
Nelda.
No, thank you. That's a great, I was going to show him that, the reason not invoice. So this do not bill actually does tie into the reason not invoice. You take it a step further to have them populate a redraft date, so you aren't going through the same crazy cycle every month if it's not going to bill for another 6 months, if something's happened and the project's on hold. So then it would, revise and return, goes back to review. Eventually it comes back as invoice as is, invoice as noted. And then what you would have is a final, and you can also have a sent to client. And that just tells you from beginning accounting, it's being drafted, sent to client, it's been sent to client. So you can go in at any time and be able to see how long it takes for accounting to get the drafts from accounting to review, how long it's going through the approval process until it gets back to invoice as is or sent to client. So is it the accounting side that's taking the time? Is it the project management side of it that's taking more time? Is it creating the invoice package because you can't get the document? So as Dawn said, there's a lot of information that you can pull from this based off of the timing and the reports that are provided. This history column here, this is great information. This is where you can go in and see everything that's happened on the project and invoice, if there's been any percent complete changes, if there's been any comment changes. So you can see all the information that's happened on the project since it's been in electronic invoicing. So that comes in really handy. The next button I'm going to touch on last, that's the final packaging. This strong arm is if you have our AR management collections module. This shows that this project has a item in the collections process. And this add docs is a feature that allows the PM to attach supplemental docs if they need to attach a progress report. They have to have approval for overtime for the client. They can simply put it in here and it would automatically attach to the final invoice. And I'll show you that on the PM side here. So these columns, everything here to the right now are all the custom columns that we have added here. This reason not invoiced. So I have a drop down here and we have 5 different options that you can choose. These you can populate whatever it might be. You can also do an other and force them to fill out a comment. This comment here is free form. If you wanted to type anything to the biller, make a note, the biller can either type it to the PM. You can have one that's just for accounting notes. So a lot can be done with these input columns. You have the ability to provide security based off of the accounting user or other users in the system that would have just specific access to these columns. So in mine here, I have my draft date. So this is the date the draft was done. My budget. So this is my budget column. If I click on this, it opens in my other screen. Let me move it over for you. You can see that it opens here. It tells me my budget, gives me my breakdown. In this case, it's pulling from my project info center. If I go look at my job to date build, it's going to pull up. It's going to tell me my invoice, if it's paid or unpaid, my invoice dates, and the breakdown of my fees and expenses and the total. If I go back and I click on my job to date billing, this is the biggest bang for your buck. I think this is the one that we see the most. Most people who are not using our product, they are having to send a project detail report, a project summary report. So when the project manager is approving it, if they're not logging into Deltek to look at the reports or project review, they don't have a way to get to see what the spent is. So here they can quickly see the spent broken out by category. If I click on show details, it goes down to the detail and shows you the date, the hours, the billing amount, and if there was any comments on the timesheet. The same is true as if I was to go down here and click on the long distance telephone. It's not giving me the invoice copy, but it is actually showing me the detail for the job to date spent on that project. So that is a great big win for us on that one. The WIP is the same thing as Don had mentioned. You can come in here, you can look at your WIP. So here, do I want to go chase $344 or do I want to chase, $14,000 in this case? So you can, sort on any of these columns. You can do some additional sorting that's greater if you want to focus on anything that's $100,000 to try and get out the door for billing. And then you have your AR over 60. So if I click on this, it's going to tell me any of my invoices that are over 60 days. Any of these columns can be customized here. So like I said, these are all custom columns. If you pull your budgeting from planning and not from the project info center, we can change that. If you wanted to show fee build and not all job to date build, if you wanted AR over 30, some other fields we've added are a multiplier field. They'll want to see, sometimes you want to see the project type. So real quickly, you can go in and look and see other items that Dawn mentioned when she was looking. She looks at our sector, practice, and office, which are part of your organization. You can add those in here as well. So you can quickly come in here and sort and look at the additional information. So now I've got this. I'm going to go set this top project here, or whichever one here. Actually, this 199005, I'm going to set this to review. so that now it's going over to Grace. I'm going to go and I'm going to log in as Grace. I already have it pulled up just for ease in the demo. I'm going to go ahead and refresh because I just hit that one and sent it over. So now on Grace's screen, you can see that she's got some light gray and dark gray lines. The dark gray lines are ones that are not actionable projects. They're ones that she has ability to look at, but cannot do anything because they are in somebody else's work grid or in their electronic invoicing to make changes. She can go in, she can look at it, she can see the file, she can click on everything. The difference is she can't do anything with this drop down. So we train our PMs, if they are just wanting to know they're actionable, they would go into grid, show actionable items. So now this is what Grace has. She's got this item here and this. So I'm going to focus on this Adelphi project. When she clicks on it, she's clicking and seeing the same thing that I saw. The difference is there's two differences. She does not have the draft date column, and we added a biller column so she would know who the biller is on the project if there's more than one person billing her projects. And this is a case where the approver can see this, but accounting doesn't because accounting knows who the biller is based off of their invoice group. So same thing here, she can click down, drill on everything. I want to go in here, I'm going to look. This is my PDF grid. It's pretty much the same. I have some, stamps I can put in here. I'm just going to go ahead and click on my approved stamp. It says this is fine here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this is approved. So I'm going to say invoice as is, and yes, yes. And now if you go back and look, that invoice is no longer there. So as Don was talking about here, if I was to go down, we have functionality that we can go in here and change this. If I change this to do not bill, it's going to ask me if I want to change it. And then it's going to tell me I can't because I didn't put a reason not invoice. So we can enforce behavior if there's information that you need to have from a PM. You want to know if they've updated the plan this month, anything that you kind of need to know from a financial perspective or even from a billing perspective. Say I want to work on this one, I'm going to go and I am going to add a document. So this is this Add Docs feature. I'm going to go out here and I'm just going to upload a document, and I do this every time. I never have one ready. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to upload something random from my family. And so now you can see that this is here. When I go back and look at this project after I approve it, you will see that that For Grace document is now in my grid. So this is as simple as it is for a PM. They have some functionality here to enable summaries if they wanted to go out and change some amounts. So as a PM, they can see it with their show actionable, or if they have action at a practice level, sector level, region level, you would be able to see these totals as well. If you wanted to come out here and see how much unbilled you had out at the time, then you would be able to see that as well. So lots of functionality and getting information out and being able to see the people under you or people you're responsible for to be able to see what type of financial impact their actions or lack of actions are having on you. So now I'm going to come back. I'm refreshing on this grid because I have two that have been changed. So I have this invoice as is now. It's going to Trent. And then I have this invoice as noted. I can go in here now. I'm going to say I would normally go in, make the changes in Vision. So you'd go back into Interactive and make the changes in Interactive and be able to do a final invoice. If they have on this project up here, there's a % complete. I can go right in here even as a PM. Sorry, it's going to the next screen here. So I have this option and I can go in here and I can update the % complete as well. So if I wanted to update my % complete to 100%, I can do this. I hit save and it writes it right back to Vision. And when I do my final invoice, that's there. So let me show you real quick on the final invoice. I'm going to click on this. It looks like an email with a green arrow up. So this is my final packaging. And this one, actually, I don't want to use this one. Sorry, I want to use the other one that I did because I did that attachment. So here you can see if I go look, I'm working on my draft invoice because I did not actually do a final. You can see that I have my invoice here and I automatically added that attachment that's here. So if I was to send this out to a client, I would go out and I do create package. It says I've got warnings because there's not any subs or expenses. Here's my file that would be sent and I'd hit start email. Oh, sorry. That's a me thing. I can't get it to close because my webinar stuff is hiding. There we go. Let's try this one more time. Because, you know, we're on a live demo and that's what happens. And so here's my invoice, who it's coming from, who it's going to. It has that same copy of that invoice. I'm pulling it over. So it has the same copy of that invoice I did. So that's how fast that electronic invoicing is with that attachment. One other item, I want to go back up to this top one here and show you on here. This final packaging, I have a FedEx receipt. You can see this FedEx receipt right here in this unbilled section here. It's $19.43. What I've done as part of my packaging, a lot of times you see some of those invoices and FedEx receipts are really hard to pull out from their list, Verizon, WebEx, any of those. So in this package template, I have this set up by, I'm adding a progress report. It's automatically generated on the fly. I have my invoice, I have a timesheet, and I'm doing a FedEx invoice here. So what'll happen is when I go out and I do create package, it's going to create everything in here that has the green item. And now I'll go down here and I can see all of my invoices. It's not bringing my FedEx one, of course. And then I do a start email and the same thing's going to happen. It's going to open up. It has my same information. This is a standard email that you send out. One more thing I just want to touch on, and working remotely and what Dawn was talking about, since this is what we're really focusing on, is Dawn can come in as a manager, anybody who has action to all invoices. You can quickly take a look and look at your all invoices. Of course, now it's not going to work. You can go in and take a look at it and be able to see, you can do grouping features within here to be able and tell what the invoice stage is. So you can go in if you want to add dollar amounts so you can see this. So this is one of the ways that Dawn can do this, but there's also features, reports that come with the application that have that reporting functionality, so you can go out and see. And anybody in accounting, if I'm Amy and I'm out, Bob can come in and do anything in my invoice grid. Everybody in accounting has open access to be able to jump in and help anybody at any time. Ron?
Terrific stuff, Nelda. As we look at, and hopefully we'll get back to the screen here, if there anything else, Nelda, that you wanted to mention while we have you on the line and before we get into Q&A?
Nothing.
Okay, terrific. So I want to thank Nelda and Dawn both. I think it's a fascinating thing. Dawn told me this, we were talking last year in November, and I remember you mentioning that when you started the adventure of getting into automating your invoicing process, you had a certain number of billers and you had more than doubled the number of employees since then and essentially tripled the size of the business in terms of number of invoices and dollars. and yet
Yep.
utilize the same number of billers. That's incredible.
We have, and we track our DSO, Ron, by unbilled and billed to come up with our total DSO number. And we've been able to maintain our unbilled DSO to, on a bad month, mid 20 days, but on a good month, we're running closer to low 20s for our unbilled DSO.
Terrific. I think one of the things that we all have a challenge on, and it's wise to do, is if we don't know our DSO, what each day of DSO costs us, we're really not fully armed to handle it. I'd like, Jaden, if you could, we have a couple of poll questions. If you could put one of those poll questions up while we start to accumulate some questions in the Q&A. And thank you for the questions. If you want to go ahead and quickly vote on this, which ERP system you currently use, that would be very helpful. We're going to give you about 30 seconds to do that. And while we're taking that poll, I think we have one question. Jenny, you want to share that question, or do you want to put it in the chat section?
Actually, Jaden should be able to see the question, so.
Oh, great,
Yes,
Jaden, if you could just share the question.
Absolutely.
Why don't you share one of those while we finish up this poll?
Perfect. Okay, so our first question today is, how difficult is EI to implement?
Nelda?
Oh, I was waiting. So EI is not difficult. There's a lot of things that come into play when we do the implementation. The upfront work is the configuration and being able to have the processes mapped out for your approval. And then from there, once we get the configuration, it's really based off of your availability to get the testing done to make sure what we've configured works for your organization. Typically, I would say, it's about from start to finish, we're looking at probably about 2 months from when we start the configuration meeting to getting you in production.
Terrific. Thanks for that, Nelda. And I think we have another poll question, Jaden, if you want to quickly put that up on the screen, and then we'll address another question. We have, how well does your project management team work remotely on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 being least well and 5 being most well. And Jaden, if you could share another question, that would be great while we're doing that.
Absolutely. Okay, so our next question today is, can you use EI with no VPN?
Yes, we do have the ability to do EI with no VPN as long as your Vision application is external facing.
Perfect. We'll wait just a few more seconds. We have a good amount of people taking the poll right now.
Great. And while we're doing that, I would just share with you, if you look at what Nelda showed on the screen a little bit ago, and I don't need her to pull it back up, but you could see that it was kind of like a working to-do list for project managers. And we found that project managers kind of like that process of knowing, hey, I've got 6 to work on today, or I got 2 to work on today. And it gives them a kind of a to-do list of what needs to happen to satisfy the billing requirements, and makes it a little bit easier and more methodical for them to get into an orderly fashion of how they respond and the information they need to provide. If we want to go ahead and wrap up on the poll question there, that looks like we've got that one there. That's interesting. Clustered in the middle, as you might expect. One of the things that working remotely requires is the ability to communicate, obviously. The other thing that often happens with remote work is it is difficult to be able to communicate in a way that gets the information to be clear and robust enough to be able to act on it for some folks, and providing a format for that is kind of critical. That being said, is there any other poll questions we have, or is that it on the polls, Jaden?
I have one more poll question, and I have only one more question from the group right now. So if anybody has any other questions, make sure you put them in our questions handout or drop down menu over there on your panel. So here's our last poll question today.
All right. If you want to, is your billing team currently capable of working remotely? If you can fill that in, and then we had another question for Q&A, and then we'll jump into the very last section here, which I think everybody will find fun. Jaden, if you could share that last question.
Absolutely. Our last question today is, when you implemented at TRC, how hard was it to get the PMs to use EI?
Actually, believe it or not, it wasn't difficult at all. I had the opportunity. I actually did. I've really grown up with Elevia and electronic invoicing in my time, because when I rolled out electronic invoicing, I was a biller who transitioned into the supervisor, the manager, and of course now I'm the director. So I've been able to really be with electronic invoicing all the way through. I got the opportunity to actually go to each location when I got to roll it out. So I will say, in times like this, maybe it's a little more challenging depending on the ability to use things like WebExes and things like that. As long as you can get them on there, it's so simple. Even today, when I train project managers, they have to learn, brand new project managers, an ERP system, how to put their time in, how to do expenses. I'm simply asking them to go into a system that tells them to go in, and they have to do two things: write any changes and change an invoice stage. That's it. It is by far the easiest system in anything of our project managers do. And Ron, I don't know if you have the quote. There was a gentleman, his name actually happens to be Ron as well, who just was determined to hate electronic invoicing. He's a project manager who's been with TRC for longer than I've been with TRC. And I will tell you, he is now one of its biggest fans. He was the gentleman who wrote everything in pencil, and so he could erase and put his papers out. And I've shown him how to erase his notes in EI if he ever needs to. But I will tell you, our project managers love it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And thanks for the answers on the quick poll. We're going to wrap up here real briefly. We have a couple of things. First of all, we hear so many great things from our clients, and it's making things easier, making it more reasonable is the goal. You can see the quote on the screen now. I want to move to an opportunity each of you has, and I think one of the things that we need to do always in business is figure out ways to better run the business, better organize the business, and improve cash flow. Part of our mission, we had recently someone who was working with us, and they realized that every day that they saved in DSO was worth a little over $1.1 million. So $1.1 million a day. And we found a way that we could save them approximately 7 days in DSO by taking the cash flow challenge. And, if you can save 7.7 million here, 7.7 million there, pretty soon it's real money. So I'd encourage you to do this if you have interest. It's really simple. Reach out to us at cashflow@eleviasoftware.com, and what we'll do is we'll set up an exploratory call, and we'll walk through what's required, and then we'll spend a little bit of time gathering data. We'll use your own data with only you being able to see all the important stuff. And we'll then give you a 45-minute presentation and walkthrough and Q&A on ways that you could impact cash flow with tools that are available to you both through our software and other methods, and compare you to other people in the industry. It's a great way to figure out, is there a way I can improve cash flow today? That's cashflow@eleviasoftware.com if you're interested in that. If you want to go to the next slide. And if you have interest in general, and if you have feedback on this or want more information, feel free to email us at info@eleviasoftware.com. We'd love to be of help to you and help you find better ways to run your business and organize your cash flow and your billing and other aspects of your accounting system. That being said, I want to thank Dawn Tosti, and I want to thank Nelda, and really the folks, Jaden and her team that put this on. And all of you for coming out today. We hope that you found some value in this, and we hope that you're able to glean a few things you can implement in your business to make it run more smoothly and improve cash flow, all during these really interesting and difficult times while we're all in captivity. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much, Ron, for that. And I am going to take the screen back over here, wrap us up. One thing I did want to say to everybody that's joined us today, I will be sending out an email after this, and I will make sure that there is a button to that cash flow at eleviasoftware.com in case you weren't able to write it down whenever it's up. And so we will just close out right here. As we finish, please make sure to download your certificate of completion now from the handouts tab in the control panel. I'm going to have some screenshots at the end of this slideshow so that you can see, help you navigate that. If you use your note at the beginning and you are watching the live webinar with a group on one person's computer, please download the multiple viewer registration form, which is also under the same handout tab. This information in case you are audited and we are contacted to verify this continuing education activity. Additionally, and again, thank you to Nelda, Dawn, and Ron, and everyone at Elevia for this presentation. Really appreciate you guys sharing how we can help business be even more efficient. And that ends today's webcast. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.